All right, today we're going to break down a really powerful spiritual take on a very modern problem. Why is it that with all the progress we've made, so many of us feel, well, deeply unhappy?
So let's just start with the question that I think is on a lot of our minds. We have all these incredible advancements, all this material comfort, so why do we feel so restless? What's with this constant nagging feeling of anxiety?
You see, the speaker we're analyzing today says this isn't just a psychological thing. It's not just in our heads. No, they frame it as something deeper, a spiritual crisis of discontent.
And to really get what they're saying, we have to understand this key idea they use, the azapsarezi, which you could translate as a period of trial or torment. The important part here is that it's not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process, a kind of spiritual ache that makes us more and more unhappy no matter how much stuff we have. Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the diagnosis? Well, according to this perspective, it all boils down to just one thing: our complete inability to truly let things go. And you can almost picture these as two mindsets at war inside of us. On one side, you've got clinging. That's the voice of the ego, right? It's all about my house, my career, my rights. It's that feeling of, how dare they do this to me? But then, on the other side, you have letting go. And that's a total shift in perspective. It's the understanding that everything belongs to a higher power. It's about accepting life for what it is and finding a bit of humility. The speaker really drills this point home with this quote. The problem isn't the tests we face in life. The reason we fail them, the reason we suffer, is because of our white-knuckled grip on the things we've attached ourselves to. And to really make you feel this, the speaker paints a picture. Just think about it for a second. Everything you've busted your hump for maybe 20, 30, even 40 years. Your whole career, your home, your reputation. And then, in the blink of an eye, something happens. An earthquake, a war, some sudden crisis. It literally just takes 1 second for every single bit of it to just disappear, vanish. The point being that our tightest grip, our belief that we have control, is really just an illusion. Now, if this deep attachment is the core problem, the speaker argues that our modern technology is like pouring gasoline on the fire. It's this massive complication, an emotional overload. I mean, just think about the fire hose of information our brains have to deal with every single day. The speaker calls it information chaos. We're just bombarded constantly with tragedies from all over the world. War here, a crisis there, violence somewhere else, all of it delivered right to the palm of your hand. And this leads to a pretty devastating outcome, which this quote sums up perfectly. When we know and see everything, we can't even enjoy the simple things, like a meal. It spiritually bankrupts us. The argument is that this flood of information doesn't actually make us more compassionate. It just numbs us out, paralyzing our ability to connect or feel any real joy. Okay, I know, that all sounds pretty bleak. We've got the problem, the diagnosis, the complication, but this is where the whole thing turns, because the speaker offers a solution, and it's found in the freedom that comes from that very act of letting go. So how does this work? Well, the speaker uses this really intense image. Picture this. You're on an airplane and it hits some really, really bad turbulence. In that moment, when you feel totally powerless, what happens? All that stuff you cling to, your job title, your social status, your grudges, it all just evaporates. Your ego vanishes. This is how the speaker describes how we live most of the time. We fill our brains with falsehoods, the illusion of control, the demands of the ego, all our worldly worries. But when truth arrives, it shatters the brain. And that truth in this context is that raw, undeniable moment when you realize you're not in control, that there's a higher power. It's the clarity that just shatters all the illusions we've built our lives around. Now, this next part is so important to get right. The speaker talks about submission or teslimiat, but this isn't about being weak or just giving up. No, it's the exact opposite. It's an active, powerful choice to let go of the ego, to accept that everything, our wins, our stuff, our very lives, belongs to something bigger than us. It's about breaking free from the prison of me, me, me. So, what do we do with all this? It brings us to the final and really actionable takeaway. How to live a life that is, in itself, an act of praise. Now, look, when you hear the word praise, or
tesbih in the original, your mind might jump to some kind of chant or ritual. But the speaker wants us to completely flip that idea on its head. Real praise isn't something you say, it's something you do. It's the act of fulfilling your core purpose, your reason for being, day in and day out.
So what does that actually look like? Well, take the sun. How does the sun praise? Simple. It does its job. It shines consistently. And the bee? It praises by fulfilling its purpose, to make honey. So that leads to the big question, how does a person praise? By fulfilling our core human duty, to be trustworthy, to be just, and to be a source of good for others.
And this is really the bottom line. It all comes down to this. The person who is the most trustworthy, the one who helps others, who doesn't lie, that is the person who is truly living a life of praise. It shifts spirituality from something you do on the weekends to a way of being, measured by your character and your actions.
So we'll leave you with this final question to think about, based on everything we just talked about. Take a good, honest look. Is what you're holding on to actually holding you back?